Mario Cipollina, welcome back.
Thank you, Jake.
How was your day?
I,
Tell me about. Did you ever? I know you went to visit your grandkids yesterday, but when you were really grooving in your career, did you have any aspirations of getting married or having a family? Is that something that you always wanted to do, or did that just sort of happen when it happened?
oh, it sort of happened. It wasn't something I aspired to. It wasn't something, really wasn't anything I thought about. It was not on my radar at all until a girl that I had been dating and actually had broken up with, I found out that she was pregnant. And my dad had died about 6 months before that. So I didn't have my pop to call and talk to about it. I didn't know what the hell to do. And so in his absence, I decided what he would have wanted me to do would be to get married and take a stab at it and do my damnedest to make it work. So that's what I did.
What has been the most surprising thing about your what was the most inspiring thing about becoming a dad that you may have not known about or even thought about?
Yeah. Well, it taught me. I think a surprise to find the main quality necessary to be a good parent was selflessness. And I think I was probably most surprised to find out how selfless I could be, at least for a good chunk of time there.
You give an example?
Well, I guess I'm thinking more in general terms, as far as just my considerations were pretty much my decision making for a long time was in my personal life was based on for the kids instead of the best for me, and it really had I had been pretty much I would say you would call it self-absorbed. I mean, I was absorbed in my bands that from the time I was young on, and that's all it was pretty much all encompassing until until I had children. And then coincidentally, shortly after I had children, for my first child, I ended up with a band that was showing real promise, and so I was immediately confronted with conflict. I felt that it was unrealistic to impossible, basically, to look away from music and just focus on children. I just couldn't afford it, and B, it was such a big part of my life. And then I guess the other conflict would have been just having to find a way to swallow being away for so long. Chunks of time were really long at first. When I had my son, but when we were touring hard and bare bones, so it was. That was, I think, my first real bouts of depression in adulthood.
What band were showing promise that you mentioned?
Huey Lewis and the News.
Wow.
My dad died when we were making our first album, and the girl that I had dated for a while and broken up with, I found out she was pregnant about within 6 months of my dad passing away. So we were just releasing an album when that all happened, and yeah. So that's the band that I was with when my son was born.
And the depression, I mean, because some people would say, well, as a responsible father, you got to sing for your supper and put food on the table. So it's a noble thing to go out on the road and make some cash, and,
right.
and everybody will understand because you're trying to support your family. But you're saying that you were conflicted by that.
I was conflicted not because of what anybody else thought, but just because I was really into my son. You know, I mean, between you and me and a fence post and whoever's reading this, I wasn't as happy of a husband as I was a father.
Sure.
But I loved being a father,
sure.
and I really enjoyed my son. I enjoy infants. I like little babies, but a lot of guys don't. They really, you know, they think they're kind of breakable and stuff. But I really marveled at how. First of all, my son was a dream baby. He was just he was the kind of kid that I took with me everywhere I went, and I even took him to the studio with me. We did Picture This with my son in the studio with us pretty much every day, and since the drums were isolated and the room that we were playing in didn't have any live amps, it was just us with our headphones on, and the amps were off in other rooms or baffled up, so there was no volume issue. So I would take an amp case and flip the top of it over, which made it a big foam lined box, and that was his playpen, and he would hang out there the whole session with me and play and perfect. It was just a very content baby, so he was a joy to be with, you know, and that made it a lot easier it was a great intro to parenting, you know, to have such an easy baby.
I know. Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful feeling, and then to be able to bring him into the rhythms of music, and he's content to be there.
I get up with him in the early mornings when he was for his early morning feeding, like at 5 a.m. You know, babies first start sleeping through the night.
Oh yeah.
Somewhat, they still wake up darn early, and so I would always get my wife to make a few bottles of milk up for me, you know, to express some milk. So I had breast milk for him, and then I would get up with him and do the 5 o'clock, and usually the next 7 or 10 o'clock, whatever, he would wake up again. But we were always up at, you know, about 5 a.m. down in the living room of our little apartment. And in fact, I've got some pictures of him. They're joke pictures. There wasn't a real thing, but we were writing a lot then, and I was writing a lot, and so I had a 4-track tape deck down in the living room. So in the morning we'd go down there and I'd work, and we'd play ball, and I would be working, and he's an infant. He's wrapped up, swaddled like a little mummy, you know.
Right. And
so I've got some pictures of him in his little recliner seat thing that he would sit in. I put headphones on him. There was nothing coming through him, but there's just this baby all swaddled up with a giant set of headphones on him. And that kind of was the picture of our 5 a.m. feeding was pretty much that.
I mean, what's your relationship with your son like today?
What is it like now?
Yeah.
It's great. We don't live in the same area anymore, so unfortunately I don't get to see him that much. It's really, I don't know that it's as big of a bone of contention for him as it is for me. But he's got other fish to fry. He's a parent himself now. So, but if I had my way, I'd see him every day. I consider myself very lucky to have him in my life because when I bottomed out on drugs and lost my job and stuff, my kids left me one at a time. He was the first to go, and then my daughter left, and so I had lost them both after about age 42, and I still, to this day, have not seen my daughter or heard from her. I've got a few pieces of hate mail, and that's about it. And then so that my son came back and is in my life, and that we have a great, a loving and warm and very much mutual admiration. A relationship with a lot of mutual admiration in it. So that I have that at all is to me, it's just a damn miracle, and I'm lucky, because I could have lost them both,
Your kids were like, were they consciously walked away from you? Because I mean, we're talking.
Yes.
Because but I mean these bouts with drugs went well beyond just being fired from. We talked last time about that experience on the bridge with the car, and then your brother pulling up and saying you should have just opened the door, But that was jump. But your kids were just kids at that point, right? I mean, but they were taken away from you at that point?
No. They certainly were given, as bad as things had gotten with me, and depression and drug use. The picture that was painted for them by my two ex-wives were so much worse that they certainly had all the encouraging reasons to run away, to stay away from me.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't really like to talk about whether or not I was a danger to them. I think it depends kind of on how you look at it. I don't think that they were physically in any danger, but I think that watching me suffer the way I was not a very, it must have been horribly unpleasant and scary and unsettling, and I really don't blame them for leaving at the time when they did.
Right. I mean, even when you were a little bit clouded by addiction, though, I mean, did you, and because, I mean, I get demonized a lot too by my wife.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. I mean,
it's a great feeling, isn't it?
Just you learn to. I've learned to just let it roll right off. It's not easy at all, and it can get really wiry. And I think the bottom line is that even in that. Anyway, so I know that they can be very effective at making you out to be that much more of a devil. Than you actually are. But I bring it up because you're a grandfather now, and I just wonder about how you try to, because your grandkids are not, they could care less about your history or how many drugs you did, or if you have to, they love you for being a grandpa. So it's kind of like, what does it mean to have an extension of the Cipollina family insofar as having grandkids? What have the grandkids meant to you?
Well, honestly, Jake, it's very complicated. I worry about the future for them.
Yeah.
I do. I worry about the future for them. But as far as our relationship and my direct rapport with them and how it affects me and how I think that, and the role that I play in their lives, I think that the demonization of Mario in my family continues to some degree. I don't think they get it directly, but I do. I think that there's usually a grandparent or two in any family that is the one that gets the least time with the grandkids, either because they're weird, they live too far away, or most importantly, they're not the favorite grandparent of one or both of the parents of the kids.
Yeah.
And I get the distinct impression that since Carlo, my son's wife, is good friends of of Carlo's mom, who was my first wife, and also very close to my daughter, who I'm still estranged from, and who thinks I am Satan incarnate. I think Carlo's wife is very influenced by them with regard to her view of me. So I don't get to see the kids that much because we're certainly not on the top of the list of go-to grandparents. So
well, there's only two sets. So, but I mean, the bottom line is that.
Well, no, that's not necessarily true. In this case, there are three sets. There's mom's parents, and then there's my son's family on his mom's side, and then there's four grandparents right there, and then there's my wife and I. So in today's world of divorces and stuff, there can be I guess there can be 8 grandparents pretty easily.
What do you worry about their future? You mean just the future of our country, or staying on the? Yeah. What do you? If you were talking to them now and they were of age, what would you? What are your biggest concerns, and what would you want them to be very aware and conscious of?
Well, I guess I would hope they would learn to experience things firsthand instead of through a screen.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of a screen-oriented world these days, and it's not going to get anything but more so that way. And I think I would I would try and instill with them a passion for interaction with people directly instead of indirectly. It seems like the more people there are on the planet, the less people are interacting with one another personally, and I just think that's sad, and I think there's some real social and intellectual and emotional landmines that come with that in that environment.
Do you feel like you're allowed to be yourself when you see them, and that you try to model that kind of interaction when you're with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Even knowing and feeling what I feel as far as my position in the family, I don't moderate my ways, which probably doesn't work. It doesn't work to my advantage with my son's wife, but it's who I am, and it's who my son loves, and it's who my grandchildren love, and I certainly would be so uncomfortable, trying to consciously modify my behavior for those. I couldn't do it.
Because I mean, I have a tendency to get when I feel like I can't be myself. I have a tendency to be a little bit abrupt. I mean, to the point where it's like, with my own kids, if I walk in and like they've been watching the iPad for too long, or I want them to transition to do something else and they're not acquiescing sometimes, I'll just walk into a situation and say, and then that changes too when I'm with my parents who already had their opportunity to parent, but still consider themselves, good grandparents, and they have their own philosophies. But I'd go in a lot of times and just be like, okay, we're done. We're going outside now. Let's go to the park. Let's go play games. Sort of imposing my will.
Right.
Sure. And is that kind of what you're getting at, where it's like that's, you go in and say, I'm really not interested in your normal.
No, absolutely not. No, I do not impose my will on them at all. I stay out of their parenting. I bite my tongue plenty, but it's I refuse to be that person. Just like with my son, I'd like to know a lot more about the minutia of his life and what things are like for him on a daily basis, and how he's doing for money and all these things. But I've always been a very respectful person of people's privacy, and I've taught my children that in no uncertain terms. And so to go against that would be to go against everything that's, some of the largest parts of me in my framework, and if for nothing else, for no other reason than to set an example, I won't do it, and I won't question my son about his life. So if he has things he wants to talk to me about, I am a very good listener, but I never press him. And that's another part of the reason I think that I have fallen into kind of a backseat department, is that I just insist on being respectful and not imposing my will, and not demanding answers, there are other grandparents that I know for a fact are very nosy.
No, totally. I'm just trying to get at the idea of how do you instill in your grandkids the ability,
by example.
But I mean to engage them, because I mean the kids are glued to their screen. So how do you get them off their?
They're not. No, they're not. My grandkids are not. Their parents don't let them look at. They don't have a TV. They do not have a family computer. The parents use computers, and they're very computer literate, but they have, and much to their credit, and much to the credit of their mother, who, like I said, I don't think really was much of a fan of ours, but in spite of that, I give her all the credit in the world for being an awesome mom, and some house they've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old that have never owned a screen, don't have access to a screen of any kind. They have books, and they hear stories, and I love that part of their upbringing, and I give their parents a lot of credit.
Sure. No, so you're talking more about like a generalization of younger people with the screen usage.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I am absolutely, and that's right, and yeah. So that, and the world that screen consciousness is creating.
I know. Yeah. I dig. I mean, and it starts.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and it's I find it too. My younger daughter, especially, if I'm too stuck in my, sort of, it has everything to do with tapping into your ego and your own world. But when I find her getting verbally and emotionally frustrated if I'm not paying attention to her, and I'm looking at my phone, and it's a reminder.
Good, she should be.
Absolutely, I'm just saying it starts at the top. I mean. Yeah,
right. That's right. You're right. That's right.
I mean, we cut our cable. We still have computers. We have smartphones. There's plenty of technology in this house, but I guess I get more. I don't get so worked up if they're watching cartoons or age appropriate stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's more. It has more to do with the sensationalism of advertising these days, and there's nothing there that's. I'm not saying it was always wholesome, but it's gotten to the point of it's just pretty out there, and I mean,
I can't imagine. Can you imagine being a kid, being a teenager, and having access to the internet when you were a kid? Oh my God! I
don't think I would have been. I'm not sure. I really don't know if I would have known how to apply myself. I didn't have the. But I know, but yeah, it's. You would
have certainly been able to find the porn channels.
Yeah, that's if you were into porn. I've never gotten off. I'm with you 100%. But I mean, it's like, it's hard to envision a time when we didn't have that kind of stuff. I guess this is interesting to me. I mean, this is a compelling thing. I mean, if you could spend a little while talking about if you have any not it's not a message of trying to repair the relationship, but if your daughter reads this book, what would you want her to know about how you feel about her?
I don't blame her. I don't judge her too early for her choices. I think considering the information she's got to work with, that she's doing probably just exactly what she should do, and many people would do. I think my son is more the exception than the rule in this situation, that he has the compassion and the self-fortitude in believing his experience, that he could go against all that current and make a choice to reach out to me and to stay loyal with me. I think that was definitely the harder road to go. It would have been much easier to just stay away and
you have 2 kids, or how many kids you have?
I have 2 kids, yeah.
And they're with 2 different women?
No, both the same mom.
Same mom. So and so your daughter essentially has never basically gotten out from under the barrage of demonization that
No. No, she's never gotten out from under the demonization, and like I said, she's very close to my second wife, who was there when I was bottoming out and got fired and all that, and and she's very close with her mom, and so unfortunately, they've both been taught a version of me that's very inaccurate, and I chose a long time ago to take the high road and not try to negate their mom by insisting on sitting them down and telling them my version of the story.
Exactly.
They've never heard my version of the story, and that's definitely a part of the problem. They're dealing only with the perspective of what the story of what happened by their mom and their stepmom. It's a very different story, and they to date have not heard it, and that they haven't heard it because I made a choice to not shake what little foundation they had for a while. In other words, when they stopped coming to see me, they stopped getting my side of the story, and their perspective on what happened and how things ended up, how I ended up where I am now and stuff is pretty much told to them by their mom and their stepmom. And for example, one small example of that is that they're under the impression that my first wife and I broke up because of my drug addiction, and that had nothing to do with us breaking up.
You're saying they, meaning your son and daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the. I've never sat them down and told them what happened from my side, from my perspective, and which is much of which the facts are quite different from what they're being told by their mom.
Do you feel like this is a forum? This book might be an opportunity for you to explain some of this?
I don't know. You and I are gonna have to talk about that.
Okay. No.
I'll tell you what I do know. I do know that when my father died, shortly after my father died, I found out some things about him, about his relationship with my mom, and a number of things that would have greatly changed my view of him, my interactions with him, and our outcome had I known them. And I'm though I've to this point have felt that the high road was to just keep my mouth shut, not rock the boat. I feel that I owe, at least to my son, I don't think I'll get the opportunity with my daughter, but I owe it to my son to tell him there's another side to the story that you haven't heard. And for example, there was, as though I were speaking to my son, I would tell him that when my father died, after he was gone, I was given a lot of information about him that would have changed my view of him and would have made a big difference in our relationship. But I never had that opportunity, and I want you to know that there are things you don't know. There are aspects of my life and your family's life that you have been given one side of, and that there's another side that I believe could possibly change your perspective. And I want you to know that there's another side, that I haven't been quiet because everything's just the way you've heard it, that there's a pretty major other side of the story. And I would be, though it might be difficult, I would like to offer you the opportunity to have that talk, should you like to have it, should you be willing to have it, and let it be their choice. You know, I envision that as something I've got to do with my son before I go.
Well, I mean, all I'm going to say is that you need to think about this for the next segment, is the idea of saying it's a lot easier, especially when there has been the ball has not been able to get rolling, at least with your daughter, and at least your son is now willing to, in his own way, try to reconcile with you. There's something pretty powerful about just having it down in print, and they can internalize it and then decide if they want to start a dialogue, as opposed to...
That'll probably be the only way my daughter does get it.
Exactly.
My preference would be to give my son, at least give him the opportunity and the option to have that as a one-on-one conversation. I would try to do that before the book came out.
I just think it's something. I think it's something. Regardless if it bears fruit or not, I think you're right. I think your son and you have a dialogue going, and you can. But to try to start a dialogue with somebody who is refusing to, but she's going to want to read it. And so, what did you learn about your father that was so revealing that you didn't know about when you were living with him?
Right.
No, I'm asking. What would
be so different? What are these?
No. I'm just going back to saying, you were talking about your dad passing, and you found.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So what were those things?
Well, I didn't know that he had adopted two children at birth. I knew nothing about them. I did not know that when he met my mom, that he had been forbidden to continue a relationship with those children by my mom. That alone would have given me so much more of an understanding of how he could have been, where all that rage that I felt. Remember, I talked with you about the rage my dad had, and it would come out of nowhere, and it made no damn sense. Realizing the amount of frustration that I would feel were I forbidden from seeing my children, and which I had been for quite a while. It would make that rage make perfect sense, and I would judge him so differently on that, just that degree alone. Just that point alone would have made a huge difference in my understanding my father. And that's just one example. I mean, there's a few things, so that's the answer to your question. There's an example.
Well, I think that's also an example of why you may want to talk about giving your side of the story, because you're still on this planet and you wouldn't.
Right.
So,
right, exactly right.
Yeah, so it's, even whether they want to accept it, and at least they'll have to, it's not one of these things that will devolve into a shouting match or a slammed phone or something. I mean, they can throw the book away, but it's there and they can see it. And you don't have to, go point for counterpoint to point. But, I mean, there's some salient stuff like that you might want to. There might be several salient things that you can point out that they have been under this misconception. And at least for the record, you have your say. So that's just something to mull over. But,
Right. Yeah. Well, if the book if there's a book written that's kind of my story, certainly those divorces and my way of dealing with them and how they affected me is probably a pretty big part of it. I mean, there's no doubt the worst time of my life was having to divorce my first wife and be separated from my children. It was absolutely, I can't even describe to you the depths of misery that was for me.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean,
hell on earth.
Rico said the same thing. I mean, I think this is like pretty like, I mean, it's profound shit, and it's not. It's something that I am that enters into my consciousness too. So I mean, it's painful. Mario, give me one. Just hold on 1 minute, all right?
Sure.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sure.
So,
I don't want you to feel like I'm beating around the bush, so I feel like I should.
No, I mean, I think that we need to spend an entire, if you want to do it, we need to focus on, you need to go back and think real hard about 3 major things that have been mischaracterized continuously,
right.
Or I don't know how many, but not your whole life, but to the point
sure.
of just setting the record straight and
well, I can give you one right now. I was just thinking about it while
sure.
you're on, if you'd like, or we can make it another.
Yeah, no, I mean we can do it tomorrow, or we'll do it. Why don't we just do a whole segment devoted to setting the record straight?
Okay, sure. That sounds good.
I want to talk to you about again your father being as unpredictable as he could be. I got a note from you here that he housed Bill Graham, Grace Slick, Garcia, Marty Ballin, Robert Shields, and Nicky Hopkins.
Robert Shields. That's that famous mime guy that had a TV show, Shields and Yarnell.
Oh my God! I mean, so what does that mean that he housed them exactly? That.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what I mean. Back in the 60s and 70s, even musicians were in society. It wasn't like it is now, where they're revered. Back then, musicians were. In a general sense, were very much underdogs, counterculture. Until the mid '80s, if I ever had to write down my occupation, I was very careful to never say I was a musician,
right?
Because it was the kiss of death. You couldn't get credit. You couldn't get business wanted nothing to do with someone who was a musician.
Oh, dude, I've interviewed so many, old school jazzers, they'd put down, composer.
Exactly. You'd write down anything but
yeah.
So my father, being that his son was a musician and it was very, compassionate to musicians and the life and the struggles, etc. He was a realtor. So, when the Grateful Dead were looking for a place to live, there was no regular realtor that would give them the time of day. So my father, in that was close to the music world by, by blood.
Yep.
Helped them all out. So he at first it started out with helping them get rentals, because no one, in the 60s, those guys didn't have enough money to buy places or didn't have any credit or anything. And so in the 60s, he helped them all those guys find places to live. And then when they were more successful and had money and had proven themselves, he ended up being the guy that they went to sell them a house. And he sold Bill Graham every home I think he ever owned. Bill Thompson, the manager of the Airplane, sold him his home. Sold Garcia a few places. Sold Marty Ballin his place, where he still lives in Mill Valley. And all those people that I mentioned. Janice, he got her a couple of places. And so all the people I mentioned and many more in the music community around here, my dad helped get into their property.
Was he actually building the houses?
No.
He was just a realtor. And when you say housing musicians, before they had any success and were scrambling and starving to death, would he put them up in his house?
No, he helped them get a place to live. A lot of them would have been living God knows where if he hadn't helped them with finding getting people, convincing people to let them live rent their house that they had for rent or whatever. They would do it on my dad's say-so because he was a very respected man in the community.
At a certain point, did some of those cats come back to you and acknowledge that to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many times, yeah.
Then he puts on 2 free concerts in downtown Mill Valley, one for Quicksilver and one for Soundhole. I mean, this guy, obviously supporting. Talk about that experience. I mean, what was? I didn't even know your brother was still in Quicksilver when Soundhole was around.
Oh yeah. Soundhole. We started Soundhole in '69.
Oh, I didn't realize it was okay. So anyway, how did that come? Why did he get?
Well, it's actually Widehole. Pardon me.
Widehole.
Technically, that was in '69. And Dan, the Shalik, my friend who was the leader of that band, and had been, he and I had played in other bands together. My mom got us my first rehearsal place for one of my earlier bands, just before junior high school. She got the Mill Valley newspaper to let us rehearse in their print room, where the printers were.
Yeah.
And they carved out a little section of concrete floor where we could set up and practice, and that was our rehearsal place. Wow. When I was like 10 years old or 11 years old. Yeah. Both of them were really into helping us out the best they could. It's pretty neat.
But very supportive. what was the impetus behind? I mean, do you remember why he had the free concert?
I don't know. I think it was I couldn't, not being in his head. It's hard to say what was on his mind, but he liked those outdoor shows, and he was quite. He was quite a well-known local figure. There certainly was not a better-known guy in town, in Mill Valley, than my father. He was not a city father. He was not on any of the boards. But he was the guy that everyone knew. To this day, I meet people that knew and loved my father. That they'll hear my name and they go, "Oh, do you know Gino?" And I've met people all over the world, Jake, that knew and loved my dad from Mill Valley, just from being downtown, and everyone went to him for advice. People trusted him. He was honest, and he lost a lot of money, refusing to sell people houses that he knew they couldn't afford, and wasn't willing to sell them something knowing that it was going to break up their marriage. And he just wouldn't. He would just take the hit, not make the money, watch him walk across the street to another realtor, because he had a conscience, and so he was a very go-to guy as far as a worldly man with a lot of good advice, and one of the guys that whenever I'd walk with him in town. Well, certainly if I was ever single, I would always go hang out with my dad, because he would go to the local restaurant and sit and have a half a liter of wine at lunch every day, and with his food, and he always had a table full of hot women. They always wanted to be with that cool old Italian guy who had the good advice, and who was not a threat, who was respectful and stuff, right? So. Whenever I was single, I'd go find my dad. Hang out.
But
as far as the gigs go, though, Jake, I couldn't tell you why he threw them, what his most personal reasons were, but he had access to the town. He could get he could get the town to do anything he would have asked, but what he really wanted to do was advance his sons and show what he was so proud of, because he was very proud of us, and so he had friends that owned the lumber company, and he had all the city hall. As far as getting permits, he could get a permit to do anything he wanted had he chosen to. But the only time he ever hit the city fathers up for a permit was for live free concerts. One of them was Quicksilver down at by the rec center. He got the lumber company to bring 2 flatbed lumber trucks and back them up to one another for a stage, and that was, and then he did the same kind of a thing another a year or two later for which Soundhole played, and that was right downtown in Mill Valley with the same deal where the lumber company brought the trucks over, and we just sat up and played. It wasn't advertised. It wasn't. It was all word of mouth, live radio chatter, and last minute and very successful, wonderful shows. Yeah.
I mean, did he? Was he? I was going to ask you about this too. Were you part of the Mill Valley Gang?
Meaning?
Well, there was this album that came out called "Casting Pearls," and
never heard of it.
Yeah, it was all your. It was Gravenitis, and it was Pete Sears, and it was all the guys who were living in Mill Valley. And
what is it called?
It's called the Mill Valley Gang, Casting Pearls.
Tasking a T?
It's casting, CASTING.
Oh! No,
Yeah.
I've not heard of that.
Oh, this is
I don't know
this is a tripped out album. But no, I mean, did your dad have a defining moment that made him a forerunner in the community? I mean, I know that he got to a point where he was somebody that the Mill Valley Bunch, it was called. I'm gonna send you a link to this because this is the most ridiculous. Casting Pearls, the Mill Valley Bunch.
Sounds like somebody found a way to make some money for them.
You know who it was? It was that cat from Terry and the Pirates. So let's see. Performers on this. This is
well, who the performers are doesn't really tell me much because it could have been tapes of jam sessions that were never intended to be.
Well, no. This is, the picture is a picture of the bridge that takes you into Mill Valley, and it's Mike Bloomfield, Nick Gravenitis, Barry Goldberg, Michael Shreve, Spencer Dryden, Lee Michaels, Mark Naftalin, and
yeah, those are all the guys that were playing down at my brother's house when I was playing down there.
Exactly. So then they cut this out, very rare LP. But
I got to hear that because it might be all the sessions that I was playing on.
I bet you were. I'm telling you, man. It's there's a import from, ironically enough, Italy on CD. But
really?
Yeah, I mean, this is the most insane.
Oh, you got to send me this, Jake. I got to see this.
Oh no, it's Mellow Mountain Wine, Jimmy's Blues, Letting Go Ain't Easy. I mean, this is, first of all, the CD runs $22. The vinyl is expensive too. Let me see what the vinyl is here. Okay, so there were a couple. They made Casting Pearls on Polydor.
Really? Huh?
Yeah. Anyway, the producers were Leo Doe, Mike Doe, the Does, DOE. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we'll work this all out. But I mean, was there a moment where your dad had to draw the line and he became an instant sort of credible source in the community?
For who? For me?
No, for the community. I'm saying he developed pull over time.
Mm-hmm.
But how did he gain that? How did he gain that respect? Not just by, because yeah, by the time he had the wine and the hot women and he was able to, he was secure enough with himself. He was not going to let somebody working at 7-Eleven get approved for a $500,000 home. So I get that. But what was the defining thing for him to get over that threshold where he became a luminary person in the community?
Well, I hear you. It certainly wouldn't have been one moment. It would have been a long combination of things. When my dad moved to Mill Valley, he had already had a long life and had been he was the youngest sea captain in the history of the Italian Navy. He then was a merchant mariner. He was captain of a lot of cargo ships and a few passenger ships. He did runs from Genoa, Italy to Cairo, Egypt, and did a lot of runs from Genoa to Sao Paulo, so he did cross-Atlantic stuff. Then when Mussolini killed his dad and had tried to bury my family in Genoa before the war, he had been pistol whipped and left for dead by Mussolini's henchmen. And when he gained consciousness in the hospital, realized that he wasn't going to live long once they knew he was still alive. So he hightailed it to the States. His mom refused to leave with him. His brother refused to leave with him, but came later. And it started a water softening company in Chicago in the 40s, pretty cutting edge stuff, and made millions of dollars. He was a very wealthy man at that point, and moved to California, moved to Hillsborough, which is a very, very upper crust area here. It's down in Silicon Valley, which is now the Silicon Valley. And at that point, he was semi-retired, but one of his investments was a real estate company. It was just an investment. It was just someplace he put some money in Hillsborough, and was married to this woman, as I told you, I found out later they had adopted 2 children. So he's a husband, a father, wealthy man, and had one of his investments was this real estate company, and he would just go. It was just a place to go and hang out. Really, he didn't have a license. He didn't show property. It was just an investment. And so he was down there one day at the office, and my mom had been divorced and was traveling with her 2 kids, looking for a place to settle down, and happened into this office, and they hit it off. And they ended up having an affair. He ended up selling her the house I was born in, and so they're having this affair, and his wife suspected there was something going on, and one morning when this is actually on point with your story, with your questions, believe it or not.
No, it's fine.
He and my mom the house where I was raised was up on a hill. You had to walk up a long path to get to it, so she would walk my dad down when they would shack up for the night. She'd walk him down the path to the road, and they were down there making out one morning, saying goodbye, and didn't realize that there was the same old man was always out there washing his car in the morning. And his wife at the time presented him. She sat him down and presented him with a dossier by this private detective, and there were pictures and all this sordid stuff. And so she told him, I want a divorce and I want everything, and if you don't give me everything, I'm going to ruin your family name. I'm going to slander you from here to Genoa. And to my father, who was raised an aristocrat and a very proud family man, would do anything to preserve his family name. And so he gave her everything, right down to the diamond out of his ring,
Wow.
and came up and married my mom, and they lived together in the house that they'd been shacking up in, and that's where I was born. But so now my dad is in Mill. Now that's his introduction to Mill Valley, was having an affair with my mom.
Wow.
At the house he sold her there, and so when he came to Mill Valley, he had nothing. He had no money, and had a really strong Italian accent, and was as far as the town knew, he was nobody. And all the stories of all his great stories at sea and stuff were meaningless, so he started from scratch, and he needed a job, so he started laying bricks. And so my father went from being, from custom-made tailored suits to, he said, Mario, I can't tell you. One day he told me, he said, I can't tell you how difficult it was for me to be seen in public with dirt under my fingernails.
Wow. Wow. You're saying he was he a
He
million?
was reduced to nothing over love, really.
Was he a millionaire?
Oh, yeah, multimillionaire.
And she took all the money?
Everything. Yeah. Yep.
Holy shit.
And and then the kind of neat side of the story that he did it all because he was in love with my mom.
Well, no, that's the cool part because there wasn't like a legal arm here twisting him to to have to.
No, just pride and yeah.
Oh yeah,
So,
it was
pride and love.
yeah, but yeah, that's the point. He followed his heart, and you were actually, and so then after that divorce, on top of losing all the monetary stuff, his first wife no longer let him see his adopted children. Is that right?
Unfortunately, it wasn't she. It was my mom. That's the kind of dark, dirty secret. One of them that I found out after he died. That for some reason, and I didn't find it out until after my mom had died too. So I was never able to confront my mom about it and try and make peace with the whole thing. So it's on two fronts. It's been and probably will continue to be for the rest of my life a real source of frustration and not being able to know from my father, like, how the hell could you let my mom boss you around like that to something that important, and to my mom, how the fuck could you insist that my father not see his children? It just fucked it kind of fucked things up in my head about my mom, and it certainly helped me understand my father's frustration and flying off the handle and stuff a lot more, that he had this constant source of pain,
Well, maybe your mom just never wanted to interact with his first wife.
Undoubtedly. And there weren't a lot of healthy examples then of alternate ways to deal with stuff like that.
Right.
There weren't a lot of therapists. And
there wasn't a lot of mediation. No, I mean it's.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not that I blame. I'm not. I just don't know how to. I don't know how to put my mom and how to. Kind of.
Well, you just never. These are things that they went to the grave with. Questions that you never even got to ask. It's not even that they were never answered.
I didn't even know I had the questions.
Sure.
And that's the exact same thing with my son. And, that's why that meeting feels so important to me, to at least give my son the opportunity to have that. And not, believe me, it's not something I'm looking forward to. It'll be difficult for me to talk with him about that stuff. But it's more difficult for me to think that someday he's going to hear something and is going to have to deal with it like I have to deal with the stuff with my parents.
Yeah, well, if he's receptive, when he's receptive and open to hearing about it, don't hold back, because.
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't know there's anything to hear, so I have to find a way to put forth the possibility of that conversation and the potential need and or benefit potentially of him not finding out something. I mean. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it seems to me like what you should do is put the grandkids aside and your daughter-in-law and maybe even your wife, and just you and your son should go, rent a shack somewhere for a weekend and just talk. Now
that there's nothing I would like more, regardless of this conversation, than to have that kind of time with my son. And I one of the sad things about life is that I could see it very easily being next to impossible for something like that to actually occur. We'll see. I keep putting it out there, but boy, he's an awfully busy guy, and I certainly don't assume. I don't give up on that, and I bring up the need and the wish for quality time of that caliber with him. I certainly don't assume I'll ever get it. Not, and by no fault of his, just by life. I don't know. I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah, I would actually up the ante a little bit too. I think it's beyond. I think that you need to, as vulnerable as it might make you, and he could obviously just blow it off. But I think you need to express to him that there are things that are urgent things that you need to to open your heart and talk to him about. And this is, as as the father, it would be very important if you could find some time to help me because I'm struggling with this. And if he, just be very honest about it because, if you just play it off as, well, I'm going to be respectful and I'll keep trying and sort of prodding, it's always going to be the same thing. But if you go to him and say, this is urgent.
This has got to happen.
Well, I'm having a lot of, be clear. Say it's causing me a lot of emotional pain or torment, and it's hard enough for me to. I'm just exposing myself and being vulnerable here, but. Can you please meet me halfway on this one?
Well, let me run this by you. I'm thinking, I hadn't told him about the stroke on stage last month until yesterday. I told him about it, and so I'm thinking, I might, get him on the phone and say, look, Carl, there's some stuff I really would like to talk with you about, and a lot of it is information that I don't want you to find out once I'm gone. I don't want you to have to deal with that like I've had to, and it's important to me that we make time to get together and have a good chunk of time.
And I just say, based on my recent medical things, I don't. Life is fleeting, and on top of that, just say with your grandfather and my dad, the same stuff. I just don't want that to happen again, and I need.
That's
And I just would be very open and vulnerable, and I think. It'll be I think it'll be a positive response, and maybe you'll only get a day with him, or whoever knows how long. But the point is that this has to take priority. It's not the idea of saying, well, I hear that from this. It's funny because you talk to, you try to secure. I don't know. You try to get interviews with younger kids that are that are having really a lot of success, and you keep hearing, they're really busy, but actually they're too immature to really even go through with a deep hang, so I don't take it personally, but you guys need to have a deep hang, and, if you come at it honestly, then it could lead to more, and so I think it's more than just, something that, I just don't think it would be appropriate, for him to I think he just needs to know that it's urgent, that it means a lot to you, and that it's happened to you before, and you just don't want history to repeat itself. So, that's...
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Okay. Yeah, I agree.
So, all right, well, listen, we just cooked for, I think it was it was a great set. It was like an hour and 4 minutes here. Do you want to try again for this week sometime, maybe tomorrow?
Anytime, Jake. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, man. I think this is our 5th session, possibly, maybe 6th. I don't know.
I've lost track. I know I've got an awful lot of notes here. I got to try and consolidate. But whatever. Yeah, I'm following your lead on this. Whatever you can do and would like to do.
Yeah. No. Why don't
make myself available to you?
Why don't we try to pick up tomorrow at the same time, about 11:30.
Okay. Hey, I was going to ask you, did you see the picture I posted in Facebook by any chance of the one that Bill Graham took?
Of you and your kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
I don't know. I tagged you in I took that picture you sent me with Tony and put it up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Oh, shit, I forgot to send you the music. Oh, God, I'll do that today. Sorry, I do have some things.
It's all right. No, you know who loved the picture is Narda Michael Walden. You should go down to Tarpan and play with him, dude.
Yeah, I sent him a note last week suggesting that I would really enjoy that, and that I haven't even checked. I'm really bad with email and my communication. I've turned into a real electronic hermit, unfortunately.
Well, all I'm saying is like.
I'd love to go play.
Yeah,
with
well,
him.
He's the type of cat that it's like if he likes something, you should try to make it work. You guys are like in your same backyard, Well,
I don't know if you've talked with him, but he and I. I mean, I know you've talked with him, but I don't know about me. But I mean, I know you've talked with him. I don't know if you're talking about me, but he's always very flattering and kind when he talks about me and my playing and our having played together. And I think he likes what I do. And so, if he's got some time and I put it out there, I think that it might happen. I would really enjoy that. We really do play well together.
Oh, dude, sure. It would be epically class. Two cosmic characters. So,
just jamming too. That's what I really like. What I'd really like would be to go down there with no format, just bass and drums, and just have at it. It'd be great, and I think he'd enjoy it too. I just don't know what his. He's a busy guy, and he's got he's got his family and stuff. So. But
that's the lamest excuse. I'll tell you, I'm just so tired of hearing he's a busy guy. I mean, at some point, not for this case, but it's like at some point your needs, not for Narda per se, but with your son and these things need to come out and be addressed, and so you can only tiptoe around it for so long.
Well, I think I must have felt the same way, Jake, because that's exactly what I wrote to him last week.
Right.
So I'll send you some that music with Tony and those guys and the punk jazz album we did. I've got just a few things.
Yeah, no, send it out. That's stuff I want to hear. Yeah,
you'll get a kick out of it.
All right, man. Great hang today. Right. Great hang.
What time do you want to talk tomorrow?
11:30.
Okay, perfect.
All right, man.
I'll be here.
All right, bro. Have a good day.
Thanks, Jake.
Later on.
See you, man.
Peace.
Bye. Bye.